Welcome to Cover to Cover Book Beat. I'm your host, Roger Nichols. This is author interview number 881. Our guest today brings an unusual perspective to the writing game. Prior to becoming an award-winning children's book author and publisher, Katherine Davis-Gibbon was a contemporary dancer and choreographer for many years, performing in New York City, St. Louis, Albuquerque, and throughout California. By day, she taught Pilates and yoga, initially at the Performing Arts Physical Therapy in Los Angeles, where she worked with a diverse clientele ranging from seriously injured people to Olympic athletes and Hollywood stars, and ultimately opening her own studio. She has a BA in dance from Scripps College, a Pilates teaching certificate from Joseph Pilates' lifelong protege, whose name I'm going to try not to butcher, Romana Grzanowska, and more yoga certifications than you can count. Now that would be a highly fulfilling life in and of itself. But Ms. Davis-Gibbon decided to do more. As a mother of two Generation Alpha kids, she founded Riverlet Press in 2021 as a platform for books that illuminate and enrich the child's inner life. Her debut book, My Old Friend, received high praise and a fistful of awards. Her latest, Words, carries on that tradition. Kirkus Reviews calls it an encouraging, inspiring introduction to the power and wonder of words. And it's picked up awards as well, including a Gold Book Award from Literary Titan. We are very pleased to welcome Katherine Davis-Gibbon. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
You know, one of my favorite opening questions for authors is usually, were you always going to be a writer? But in this case, you obviously had a focus on dance. So let me ask, were you doing any writing on the side during this time?
I actually did know that I wanted to end up being a writer. It was a little bit of a push and pull for me in college. I knew that I had sort of this connection to words. I always knew that. I journaled and I wrote. And that was how I kind of, made sense of things. And when I graduated but then I ended up doing a dance major in college, because that was sort of an area of growth for me at the time. And when I graduated, I was tempted to write, and I got a couple jobs. I worked at a publishing company part-time. I wrote some book reviews for a magazine. I did a few short articles for like a Los Angeles paper. But I just realized, I also have this love of dance, and dance is kind of my my growth edge, if you like. And I just made a very pragmatic decision of like, if you're gonna do movement, do it when you're young and you're healthy and your body works. And if you're gonna write, do it when you're older and wiser. So just go whole hog on the movement right now. And you can just always savor the idea that, at a certain point in life, I am going to turn my attention to writing full time. And that's what I did.
Now, was there a certain incident or a series of incidents that said, okay, now's the time?
Yeah, actually. So I did that. I taught movement and I owned a studio and I danced and did all that stuff for, about 20 years, through my 30s and 40s. Started my family when I was 40, actually. And I was really looking forward to moving into the writing phase of life. And I was a book that I had started working on before I had my first child, which was not for children. I'm still working on that book. Okay. But so I was really looking forward to getting back into it. And my kids ended up, there ended up being a fairly large age gap between them. And then my youngest was going into pre-K in the fall of 2019. And I thought, well, I'll let her go part-time and I'll ease her into it. And then, in the winter, she'll go full-time and then I'll get back to my book. And so, we all know what happened in the winter of 2020. So I lost everything. I lost my kids' schools, their friends, they have pretty busy lives. So all their activities, everything that they were interested in, and suddenly they were both back at home. And I was homeschooling basically because you had to, the older one. And then the younger one is just this very bubbly, hypersocial individual who needs to talk at all times. So it was just like this tremendous pressure cooker that took away all my time. And I was sort of left with this burning desire to write and very little time. I mean, very little time, really no time, except that I would get up at 4 every day and try to do something in the morning. And I couldn't, it wasn't going to be possible for me to get back into that book for adults. Um, and I just found myself like, you know what? I've been doing this for, over at the time, over 10 years. Um, I spend most of my time with kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I have lots of ideas and I think deep thoughts, but I know how to talk to kids about these things. I've learned through being a mother, and I was a full-time mom for, a long time. So, I've learned how to express ideas to small children in ways that are meaningful to them, but also accessible to them. And I wrote my first children's book in the middle of the night on my phone while I was sitting up with my daughter nursing her.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and that's how the first one. But when I woke up the next morning, I couldn't wait to get right back into it and start editing it and making it better. And I was like, okay, this is how you do it. I mean, this is how you do it in a pandemic with two kids,
Mm-hmm.
and no time. And the burning desire to write is you just do it when you can. And so, as imperfectly and as, crazy as that whole situation was, something about all the different pressures kind of coming in on me, it pushed me into writing children's work. And I just wrote a bunch of children's stories all at once in the summer of 2020. And it was inspiring enough and made me realize, you know what, I can do this too. I don't have to be writing articles or book reviews or a novel for adults. I can do this too. And I actually am a very visual thinker. Choreography is visual storytelling.
Right. Right.
So I see the illustration. I mean, I was just like, this is a little bit of joy coming into my life in the middle of this pandemic, and I am suddenly having fun again and loving life again. And so I just went in on that, and I'm still doing it, and it's still just as joyful and fun as it was then.
And you're still smiling. I can tell. As soon as you started talking about that, boom, you lit up. It was wonderful, which is
Yeah.
really great to hear. So you wrote all these stories. How did you decide which one to start with?
Yeah, so the first one was just this idea that had been kicking around in my head for a long time. And I will probably not ever publish that one. I've just decided that unless I figure it out, I don't think it's good enough. So the second one that I wrote ended up being the first book that I published. And it was clear to me when I wrote it, it was just clear of like, this is it. I mean, I nailed it. Like, I found that line that I'm looking for where there's depth, and it's something that other people don't write about much. So it's interesting and it's novel, and it's going to have an impact on adults, parents and children reading together. But it's fun, and it's done in a way that children can relate to. I just knew that I'd found that line that I was looking for. So I just plowed forward with that one. And then that was kind of how I decided to publish Words as well as number two. It just that I knew that I landed in that sweet spot that I'm always looking for. So yeah, it has to be good is the thing. You write, and some of it it's okay. It's not like terrible, but it might not be good enough to bring it to market and share with the world.
Yeah, and as somebody who writes for a living, for newspaper and radio for 50 plus years, you have to sometimes kill your babies. The perfect paragraph that really doesn't advance the story, so you set it aside and move on. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I need to ask about you starting a publishing place at the same time as you're trying to put out your first book. How
Mhm.
difficult was that?
It was just scary. It wasn't really that difficult, to be honest,
Hmm.
but it was scary. But I just realized, all of my books are they're motivated always by the same thing, which is how do you kind of talk to small children about ideas and about their experience and their inner life and consciousness, what they're thinking about, you know? Because so much of what's out there for kids is much more concrete. Um, it's teaching skills rather than raising interesting questions. I mean, there is sort of some more movement I feel now towards, I'm seeing more now about mindfulness and about, um, yeah, about your inner life, about your inner experience, how you experience being alive, how you experience other people and relationship and all these interesting questions. I'm seeing more now, but certainly when my kids were little, there wasn't a whole lot um, for that. And I was always looking for that as a mom. I was always like, love these books. And I really did adore the books that we read together. I mean, we read them over and over and over again, and I can't even give them away because I love them so much. But there was just a kind of book that I wanted to be able to go to the library and check out or find in a bookstore, and I wasn't finding it. And then in 2020, as I was writing these stories, I was like, there's really a common thread. Each story is about something different. It's not like formulaic. That's not, I don't want to fall into that. But these stories are about consciousness, the inner life, what we think, what we feel, and how we hold that as we move through the world. And so I just realized, you know what? I mean, I could self-publish under my name, but I have kind of a mission here. I easily have a mission statement. So why not just create an imprint and start working with these? And who knows, maybe I'll meet other writers who, you know, have a similar motivation and intention. And, maybe I'll meet my children's book author soulmate someday and we'll work together. But anyway, so I just decided to go for it.
Yeah. And apparently it's worked out very well for you. I appreciate that. I was going to ask you, partially answered this already, but I have a question on my list here. It says, how do you believe your dance background has informed your writing? Obviously, the visual aspect of it. Was there
Yeah.
more?
Yeah, there is actually. So, like I said, um, I've just always had an affinity for words. I've always felt like a closeness with language, and like I mentioned, I just started journaling in high school and just kept going for a long, long time. Um, there was a way for me as a younger person that closeness with language, there was a little bit of a tightness with it, like a little bit of fear, a little bit of reluctance to share. I was very shy when I was little, kind of a deep thinker, but then you're not going to share your deepest thoughts with every single person out there, so you're more selective, um, and I think that dance just gave me a way, and movement in general just gave me a way of kind of loosening up some of that tightness. Um, there was more kind of, the sharing was very spontaneous, immediate. When you perform on stage, you are basically co-creating an experience with your audience because you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, you can have your choreography planned, but I can attest that sometimes things don't go to plan and people make mistakes or,
Yeah.
power goes out or whatever. And, the unexpected happens. It is a very spontaneous experience between you and whoever the audience is on that particular evening, which is really cool, but also kind of scary. Um, and so it just kind of loosened something up in me where then, when I came back to writing, there was more flow, and perhaps, I'd learned to be brave as well, and get up in front of people. So yeah, I think it helped me a lot.
It occurred to me as I was reading, I was wondering about dance influencing transitions because when you move from one move to the next, you want to make that graceful. And I'm wondering if again, this is on a children's book. It's like poetry. Every word counts, and you have to make it flow. It seems to me that transitioning might be something you have innate in you as a result of your training.
That is such an amazing question. I love that you asked that. I would never have thought to articulate it the way that you just did, but it's so true. I mean, something I think that you learn as a dancer is that the whole thing is transition. I mean, it's alive, it's animate. Any split second that you rush through or falter on or lose your focus on really degrades your performance. What an incredible question you asked. I mean, it's the whole thing is transition.
Yeah,
um, that's what dance is. And so yeah, and I really appreciate the way you're linking that to children's writing, because it's true, is every single word counts. And you don't want to have extraneous words that water down, what you're doing. It really ultimately is a children's poem. When you finish a
exactly.
book, it should be able to stand on its own as a poem, even without the illustrations. And so those, if you choose to put the word and in or the word but in, there better be a really good reason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But good. I'm glad that because that just occurred to me as I was reading that, and I thought this might be a good question to ask. Every once in a while, that happens. Unfortunately, the generations that I was involved with and you were involved with are so much different than what children have to facing today. There's precious little time for kids to relax, to be children, to enjoy simple things before being bombarded with words and images and every side. So I'm hoping that this is one of the ways we help to get that explanation out to them.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's a really odd and probably very difficult time to be a kid. The backdrop is just information, just coming at you from everywhere. And like you said, it's words and images just kind of being thrown at you. And, kids are growing so fast and processing so much anyway, just by virtue of human, what it is to develop as a human being. When you add all these layers, boy, is that tough. And, they've just been through so much with the pandemic. Um, but I think the technology piece can't be overstated. There's a lot of concern about kids' social emotional development these days, and then some really sobering statistics regarding reading test scores these days. But really, I mean, the American Academy of Pediatrics was calling out technology starting in 2011, so 9 years before the pandemic
Mhm.
hit. Professionals who work with children were already seeing, that they were suffering. They were, their ability to engage with people and with language was degrading, basically. Um, and then on top of that, we have this whole political atmosphere and just the stance that people have, I think, partly because of social media and email and even Zoom, whatever. It's different. It's different than communicating face to face. And this combativeness has really infiltrated our culture. Yeah, I think this kind of hypervigilance of like kind of consuming what people are saying and then judging it. Um, and often with a kind of a negative tinge to it, or a very negative tinge to it. So wow, kids are really going through a lot and growing up in these kind of unprecedented challenges, of the pandemic, AI, technology, phones,
Yeah.
and then all the little things that we don't think about that much. But I think about sometimes like self-checkout, like how different is that than, you know, when I was a kid, I had to walk down to a store with my cash in my hand if I had any and buy a candy bar or something and talk to someone. And have this card that they tap and they don't speak to anyone. I mean, it's such a different time, as you said, for children to be growing up. So I feel like it's really important, like the message of words is really important right now for young children, just to kind of present them with reality, where words are something that they are truly letting into their lives as kind of a sacred space and partnering with as they navigate the world, but have meaning.
Interestingly enough, our governor in the state of Oregon, where I live, just announced this week that she is going to put a directive that no phones will be allowed in school at all. This
Love
is
that.
now, unfortunately, some parents are upset because they want to check in with the kids all the time. That's helicopter parenting in my view, but you know. And again, as an old person, I will take advantage of the fact that I'm an old person to say, back in my day, a mom would give us a lunch and we'd be in the woods in 5 minutes out our back door and be gone all day, and she wouldn't worry. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a different thing. I've changed the subject here, but some of the materials supplied for this interview, you talk about the rise of social media, how bullying has unfortunately become ubiquitous. You also mentioned something that intrigued me. You call it toxic positivity, which sounds on the surface like an oxymoron. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, um, you probably, I'm just going to guess, Roger, do you have Instagram?
I do not.
Okay.
And I do not do Facebook either.
Okay.
I gave up years ago. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I never had any of these social media accounts at all until I started Riverlit Press.
Mhm.
And then I was basically told, you have to have a presence. So I created my accounts, did a very bad job for several years. I'm doing a little better now. I've learned how to be quick about it. But if you had Instagram, Roger, what you would see is people creating the most positive avatar of themselves that you can imagine and presenting that to the world.
Uh,
So, and then the other thing I think is that, bullying it's a really significant, deep-rooted problem in our society. And saying be kind, that isn't gonna cut it. Like, it's not enough.
mhm.
Like we need to like explore the roots of this and work on why did this happen and kind of unravel it. Like we need to swim up. Like it's not enough. I did an interview actually with this guy named Jed Doherty. He was a teacher for years and he traveled around the world doing magic shows and readings with kids. And he said all slogans in the world that he saw, anti-bullying slogans, didn't even scratch the surface of undoing this problem. It's like you need to almost like go into the problem with a map of how you do things differently and find your way out, grow your way out of this thing that's happened in our society. So toxic positivity, it's really pretty fake. Like if you say, it's all good, it's all good. Like say someone says something, nasty and borderline bullying or passive aggressive to you as a child, and you say it's all good.
Mhm.
It's actually not all good. you know,
Yeah.
it's like you could have a meaningful interaction about what just happened. What was your intention when you said that to me? You could
Mhm.
have a meaningful reaction, but there is, I think, because bullying is so ubiquitous, that there is kind of this movement, this kind of anti-bullying movement that's just a little surface level. It's kind of this deflecting defense mechanism, and it's well intentioned, and there's nothing wrong with it except that it's not super effective, I think. Um, but yeah, the toxic positivity of kind of like what, it's almost like a whatever kind of attitude, like
Mhm.
I don't care kind of attitude. And it's like, we got to care. Like the only way to work on bullying and undo what's happened is to care and to be brave and show that you care.
You have to acknowledge that there is a problem, and if you just say everything's going to be okay, then you're ignoring the problem. Uh, and I fully trace it. And again, this is my personal opinion, and not necessarily reflective on you, but I fully trace it to all of the social media platforms whose algorithm rewards emotion and
Hmm.
negativity because that brings more response, that brings more eyeballs that they can sell to their advertisers. I find that disgusting. This is why
Yep.
I don't do any of that stuff anymore,
Yep.
other than YouTube, which I push these things on. So yeah.
Hmm.
Um, well, so much stuff in here. I do want to give a shout out to your illustrator, Ann Barry, who's done a wonderful job of illustrating some anthropomorphic words alongside kids and grown-ups. Now, I have to tell you quick, this reminded me of a late father who once, a couple of times, would say, get out a piece of paper, have us draw a number, and then he would take that and make a caricature cartoon out of that. And a lot of it looked very similar to what Ann Barry has done there. So, how did you hook up with that particular illustrator?
Well, so one of the reasons why I created an imprint, Riverlet Press, and one of the great joys of having one is that I don't just write a book and get it assigned to some illustrator I've never met and then get art back and just
Yeah.
that's that. And you know, I don't know because I'm not traditionally published, but what I've heard is that's kind of how it works in the
Mhm.
traditional publishing realm. Um, but as I said, I am a super visual thinker. You know, I used to create choreography, and that's how my brain works half the time. So when I write a book, I do have pretty strong opinions about what I want it to look like and how I want to do it. And with this particular project, um, you know, it was only the purpose of the book really is to bring language to life for children, to get them excited about reading, but also to give them these hits of the personalities that words have inherently. And so, you know, my idea once I'd written the story was we got to be kind of creative here. You got, you know, do something novel. These are not just letters with eyes and smiles. It's like every single word character that is depicted in this book needs to feel like a person. I want kids to see a word character and immediately be reminded of someone they know or see themselves in it,
Mhm.
see the humanity in each of the word characters, whether they're quote unquote good or quote unquote bad. You know, even the bully characters in the books, you see the humanity in that character. And so, you know, it was pretty personal to me. So what I did, which is what I always do, is I searched and I searched through Illustrator portfolios, looking for someone who I think can do what I want them to do. And with Anne Barry's work, what drew me to her was I saw some characters, lots of characters that she'd rendered, and they had on the surface charm, wit, humor, but they also, you could feel the personality. You could feel some tenderness. You could feel the innards of these characters in the way that she rendered them. So I reached out to her and I said, hey, I have a project. It's about finding your voice and language and blah, blah, blah. And, but you know, it's kind of a big ask because, you know, we won't create one character who's repeated over and over again in the book. We're creating an ensemble cast of both child characters and word characters. They all have to be distinct. And I'm going to have a lot of opinions. So this is a collaboration. We're going to be back and forth all the time. And how does all that sound to you? And she was like, wow, the message really resonates with me. This is something that was hard for me growing up, finding my voice. And also, I love the idea of collaborating with you. And this just sounds like fun and different and a challenge. And so I'd love to do it. And, you know, we just dove in, but there was a lot of, huge amount of back and forth with the character. Some in the beginning, she just didn't really know what I was picturing at all. So I had to sketch and doodle, which is very embarrassing because I'm not very good at that. And send them to her and say, so it would look like this, but way better, you know. And And then, and then once we kind of got, an idea of like how we're going to do it, every character was its own challenge, which was sometimes a little overwhelming, but also super fun. We had so much fun just bouncing off ideas off each other. And I tend to be very detail oriented. So if she'd send me a character, I'd say, I love it, but I just want those idiosyncrasies in there that make them feel like a person, So let's put a slingshot in his back pocket, or let's make the hair like this, or and I would kind of draw on her drawings, and we would just bounce them back and forth. So it took a long time, but it was really fun. It was really rewarding, and ultimately, I think we achieved what we wanted to achieve because kids are, and adults are responding to it, and they're getting it. So I think it worked.
I think that I was first immediately drawn to the word words with the hair, with the W forming the hair.
Yeah.
And it was so, and I'm a huge student of the comics arts and interviewed a bunch of people who are worked on that. And to find that kind of whimsy that really felt character driven from the very beginning, I thought, okay, this is going to be a good book. I'm
Yeah.
in for a good time here.
Yeah, it was fun. The very first one was the hardest one because on page one, it's like we want to have a word character, but it has to spell word. I can't choose whatever word I want. It
Right.
has to spell word. And we want it to be legible, but we want it to be a little sneaky. And so ultimately, I came up with that idea of having a light source shine on it. So it was spelled out in shadow because otherwise I wasn't sure it would read.
Hmm.
But she sent me 5 different characters. And one of them ended up being the one on that first page. There was one that never got used in the book, and he was so awesome. His W was more like a mohawk. I mean, it was just the great. Like, I love this character,
Yeah.
and we never ended up using him. And the other 3 were great, but we were
Yeah.
she. I mean, it was just amazing to see how she could, create for me 5 different characters that all had that combination of being funny and the whimsy and the wit that you mentioned, but also, working as a word ultimately.
It sounds to me like she had as much fun on this as you did.
We had so much fun. We had so much fun. I would love to work with her again. We just, for every project that I do, the books are different, and I need to find the one illustrator who can meet the needs of that project. And so I need to come up with an idea that is perfect for Anne Berry so we can work together again, because we kind of have held that out as like we need to do this again sometime.
One of the things that makes this book stand out is you show some of the problems kids have with words. Again, you have not bought into toxic positivity in this. You've said you can stumble into the wrong ones, or some can chase you like a swarm of wasps, others can hide out when you need them. And I can assure you, as one ages, many words, nouns in particular, become fleeting as time goes by.
True, very true. Yes. I'm unfortunately already starting to experience that.
Yeah. I also want to call attention. This is something I just noticed as I was rereading it this morning before this interview. I want to call attention to the bookends, as it were, that begin and end the book, because it opens with words are a lot like people. Each one is awesome just as it is. And it ends with because words are a lot like you, from the general to the specific. That's beautiful design. Very nicely done.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I just really want kids to, if I have any mission for this particular book, it's that I want little kids to really regard words as friends. And so real friends, not in that like toxic positivity, we're all friends here kind of way, but truly, like, every word could in a certain situation become your ally, or become your teacher, or become your best friend for a period of time. And so, yeah, I wanted it to be personal. I wanted it to hit home, and I just wanted them to really want to explore all of what words are.
Good for you. Excellent. So, what do you hope that the parents take away from from words, and what do you hope the children take away when they close the book?
Yeah. The kids, mostly what I just said, that, words can be like friends to them. Words can be companions to anyone. And frankly, I mean, whether we hold them that way or not, they are our lifelong companions. So why not get to know them really well and try to have a good relationship with them? Because they're going to be with you till your dying breath, the words in your head, the words you're hearing, the words you're saying, the words you're thinking. They are going to be your companions throughout the whole journey of your life. So befriend them, find the powers that they have, the words that don't feel good initially, give them a chance, and get to know them, and find out where and when and why they are helpful, and they do work. For parents, I think, I want it to be a reminder. Parents are further along on their lifelong journey with language than children are. Parents are further along. Parents have a greater mastery. They have a bigger vocabulary, et cetera, et cetera. But their journey isn't over. For me personally, I assume and I hope, because I think it's delightful, that my journey with words takes me to the very end of my life, And so I just want this to be a reminder to parents of, like, how I talk to my kids matters too. And how I encourage my kids to investigate words matters. So if your kid uses a word that's very one note, like mean, that kid's mean or whatever, you can ask questions. You don't have to say, that's not the right word. You can just ask questions. You can open up the conversation, the dialogue, the inquiry. What do you mean by mean? And it can unpack the word. And, is it that they're rude? Is it that they're inappropriate? Is it that they're actually kind of defensive? Like, what is it? And that's the delight, is, unpacking language forever and ever. So I hope that it encourages kids to do that, and I hope it reminds parents to do that with their kids.
And then we all live in teachable moments every day if we recognize that. So, are you accepting contributions from people that want to be published by Rivulet Press?
I'm not, but I do. There's an openness there, that I don't have some process by which I accept submissions and vet them, but there is an openness for me. Like I said at the beginning, if I meet someone who really is my children's author, soulmate, who shares this mission, who came to this on their own, and has novel, interesting material that they want to develop, I'm here for it.
Okay.
I would be open to collaborating with someone, but I don't think that my strength is really, publishing books so much as writing, editing, finding the right illustrator, working with the illustrator, designing the book the way it's going to look. That I'm much more, my strength is much more on the creative end of things and the thoughtful end of things. So if people are interested in this subject matter and they want to, collaborate, I love connecting with people, whether it's another writer, readers, librarians, teachers, parents, whomever shares my interest and my passion for this. I like hearing from people. So please do, if you have thoughts, ideas, or just feedback, anything, if you want me to come visit your school, your library, go to my website and click the contact button and send me an email, because I'm always excited to hear from people.
Let's mention the name of that website for sure. And that is?
Riverlet Press.
Okay. Is it .com, .org?
Yes,
Okay.
riverletpress.com, and on all those pesky social media forums,
Yeah.
it would be whatever / Riverlet Press.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent for that. What's next from the press? What have you got in the pipeline? I want to know.
I am having the most fun right now creating a book with a wonderful illustrator named Sheridan Turton. And I don't want to say too much about it. It's about resilience, and the hidden gifts of not always getting what you want. And Sheridan and I are creating a world, just like words created a really fun, different, unique, world where words literally come to life on the page and become like, characters and humans that you interact with. Sheridan and I are creating a different kind of world, which I can't say too much about, but it is so much fun. I can hardly wait for Friday of each week when she sends me new art, because it's like the highlight of my week, just seeing it. And she is, even though I know what it's going to look like and what it's going to depict, because I designed it with her, when I see it, it makes me laugh out loud.
Oh, well, I'm hoping that you'll get back to us when that comes out, and will that be anytime soon?
It is going to come out next year because we are plowing through this. So it'll either be late summer or fall
Okay.
that it'll come out.
All right. Well, we will look forward to that. Is there anything we've not touched on you want to make sure our listeners know about you, about Rivulet Press, about the book Words?
Well, thank you for asking. Something that I kind of glossed over that I would like to mention is, so I have started doing engagements at schools and sometimes malls, libraries. And what I do is I come in with the book. I do a reading for kids, and then we talk about things. We talk about language a little bit on their level. It's not really heavy, but we touch on some social emotional development skills, ways that words can be, you know, used differently, for better or worse, and the way that our agency in choosing how to use them kind of shapes their relative goodness or badness of words. And then I have developed a bunch of literacy based games that I play with kids. And so we just play and we have fun. And I work with whatever age group I have. If it's, I kind of have one set that I can do with the preschoolers, because a lot of times, they're not necessarily in school all the time. So those are the parents who really need activities with kids. And then I have another set of things that I can go into a school and do with kindergarten or grades 1 through 3. And I've done this with all ages and different settings. And it really is a really good time. And it really is educational. And it really gets them excited about their own ability to read and kind of connect with even just letters and words, full words. And I am just really having a blast doing this. So I would love to do it really anywhere. And so, like I said before, if you are a teacher, a librarian, a bookseller, if you have a bookstore and you like to do events on Saturdays for kids, or a mall, I mean, a children's museum, if this sounds like fun to you, go to my website, riverletpress.com, click the contact button, send me an email. And if I can get to you, I will get to you, because it's a good time and it's just, it's great for everyone. It's great for the parents. The parents and are really enjoying just the fun of it, having that fun with their children. And it's great for the kids and it's good for me too. I enjoy it and it helps me connect with readers and get more feedback. So
You
reach
know,
out.
what you're doing is you're dancing with words. You're dancing again.
Literally, some of the activities are dance based. Yeah, it's fun.
All right. Well, I thank you so much. You've been very generous with your time with us this morning. Our guest is Katherine Davis-Gibbon. The book is Words, highest possible recommendation. Look her
Oh,
up, check it out, do so soon. Thank you so much for being with us today.
I really appreciate it. And you've been generous with your time. Thank you so much.